Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this morning. I'm Danielle Christensen. I'm the Vice President of Business Development and Marketing here at the Business Network for Offshore Wind. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am really excited to see so many of you here this morning. We are thrilled to talk to you about our newest program, Global Gateway. But before we get started this morning, I want to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded. Also, there will be an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation, but if you want to remember them as we go along, you're welcome to pop them into that Q&A button on the bottom of the screen here. Not the chat button, but that Q&A button that's over to the right. So taking a look at the agenda this morning, here is what we have for you today. By the end of this half hour, you will have an understanding of what Global Gateway is and how to participate. You're going to hear from the International Trade Administration and learn how to engage with their resources. We're going to go over a full schedule of delegation trips that are planned from 2022 through 2024. And of course, we're going to be covering in-depth the details about the first trip in the program, which is the European Floating Offshore Wind Educational Tour and Wind Europe Conference in Bilbao, Spain. So what is Global Gateway? Global Gateway is a program offered by the Business Network that directly connects US-based companies to international offshore wind marketplace and supply chain. We're going to do this through organized delegation trips to key markets in Europe, Asia, and South America. The program not only provides access to our in-depth offshore wind knowledge, it also takes advantage of our connections through international introductions and education. And it leverages our event planning capability and puts you in an environment that provides hands-on, in-person learning opportunities. So the mission of the program is to utilize all of the tools and expertise we have as an organization to help accelerate the export of your products and services on a global scale. And if you're new to participating in delegations and are considering if this is the best process for you when you're thinking about going abroad, think about it like this. When you travel with the US delegation, you leverage the power of our marketing. We're going to showcase your organization and the US to the global market in a way that highlights the expertise and innovation that US companies can bring to the global supply chain. You're going to save your staff time by letting us handle all of the event logistics, including the exhibit stand organization, marketing materials, conference registrations, tours, the transportation between all of those things, and more. And most importantly, you will develop important, hopefully lifelong relationships with your other delegation members, organizations you'll meet along the way, and of course, the Business Network staff. And remember that Global Gateway is open to members and non-members of the Business Network. And now I'm going to introduce our next speaker, but I look forward to answering your questions about this new and exciting program. And with that, I would like to introduce Michael Jackson, Senior International Trade Specialist with the International Trade Administration. Michael?
Thank you, Danielle, and good morning and good morning to everyone. I just first want to say that it's a pleasure and an honor to work with BNOW on this project. I am, as was said, I am Michael K. Jackson. I am an international trade specialist at the U.S. Commercial Service location in Maryland. And just a little bit about the U.S. Commercial Service. We are a part of the International Trade Administration, which sits within the Department of Commerce. And our whole mission is to help you grow your companies by exporting your products and services into international markets. So this partnership with Business Network for Offshore Wind is a wonderful partnership. Just want to briefly explain to you, for those of you who might not be familiar with us, a little bit about the U.S. Commercial Service and how we can facilitate your growth through exports. So we are again, part of the Department of Commerce, and we have locations, over 100 locations here domestically, and we work hand in hand with our colleagues in embassies and consulates overseas in over 80 locations. And we provide a number of different services to assist you. As you can see here on the screen, we provide export counseling that really assists you in developing market entry strategies. We even help you digitally by globalizing your website. We provide market intelligence. So we really, through our partners overseas, we can actually give you an idea of what the market looks like overseas and be able to connect you with partners overseas, distributors, partners, etc., which leads me to our business matchmaking. That's really our bread and butter in terms of being able to connect you with potential partners, distributors in foreign countries. And we do that in a number of ways. I only have a couple of minutes today, so I'll go in depth into our services. But one of our primary programs is called, right now, as we're in a virtual environment, it's called the International Partner Search Plus Virtual Introduction, where we actually connect you. We do a search for in markets overseas for potential partners in your specific industry, and connect you with those partners and actually set up virtual meetings between you and those potential partners. In a non-COVID environment, we would have something very similar that's called the goal key, where we actually, instead of setting up virtual meetings for you, we actually set up in-person meetings for you, where we would enable you to meet one-on-one with these potential distributors. Now we're going to be able to do that through the Global Gateway, which is beautiful. And then lastly, we have commercial diplomacy. So for those of you who might be bidding on foreign government contracts overseas and that need help facilitating that, we facilitate that through our advocacy center, which is also a part of the International Trade Administration. So again, I only have a couple of minutes, but just wanted to highlight some of these programs for you all today. I encourage you to connect with me. My contact information is right here. I'm focused strictly on Maryland, but again, we have colleagues throughout the country that can assist you. Feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll be happy to facilitate that connection if you're not in Maryland, or you can simply go to trade.gov on the contact page and find your location. But again, it's a wonderful pleasure working with BNOW, and I urge you to really take advantage of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Danielle. Hi, everyone. My name is Bettina Geisbuehler. I'm the Director of Business Development and Global Outreach at the Business Network, and I will be leading these delegation trips. And as Danielle mentioned, Global Gateway is designed to directly connect your company to the international offshore wind marketplace and supply chain through organized delegation trips. Our upcoming delegation trips bring you to well-known industry conferences. And while virtual tours provide a good opportunity to stay connected, nothing can replace a first-hand view of offshore wind in action for knowledge building. And the purpose of these trips is to provide you a see and touch opportunity of offshore wind technologies, infrastructure, and supply chain. And here are the upcoming trips for 2022. In April, we will be going to Bilbao, Spain for the Wind Europe Conference and a floating offshore wind tour. In June, we will be going to Manchester for the Global Offshore Wind Conference. And in September, we'll be going to Wind Europe, Hamburg in Germany. In 2023, we are expecting to go back to Wind Europe in Denmark in April, and again, Global Offshore Wind in the UK. And for 2024, 2025, again, going back to Wind Europe, Wind Energy Hamburg, and Global Offshore Wind, as well as going to Brazil for the Brazil Wind Power Conference, Vietnam for the Asian Wind Energy Conference, and Japan for Japan Wind Energy. So first, I'm going to talk about the Global Offshore Wind Conference and Study Tour going to the UK in June. We will start by going on a pre-conference tour to Scotland, Aberdeen specifically, and spend a day in Aberdeen with meetings focusing on floating offshore wind and hydrogen, and if possible, seeing a floating offshore wind farm. Then we will go to Manchester for the Global Offshore Wind Conference, where you will have the ability to exhibit with us in the USA Pavilion. So after 2 days in Manchester, we will go to Hull. We are currently coordinating with Renewable UK to organize a manufacturing skill training tour of the Siemens factory, and also have a focus on O&M, either an O&M facility in Hull or a O&M port in Ramsgate. And then after a week, you will depart on Saturday. The next tour I'm going to quickly discuss is to Wind Energy Hamburg in September. We have also planned a pre-conference tour to Denmark. So we would arrive in Copenhagen, have a welcome dinner, and then go to Aalborg and have a reception and briefing there, and visit a blade factory and the port of Aalborg. And then we will spend time at Wind Energy Hamburg conference, and also have the possibility to exhibit in the USA Pavilion. And after the conference, take a day trip to Bremerhaven to look at the port and harbor, to see the leading European location for wind turbine production and logistics. And now I'll give you a detailed overview of our upcoming trip in April, which is the European Floating Offshore Wind Educational Tour and Wind Europe Conference. In April, the DemoSouth floating platform prototype will be at the port of Bilbao in Spain, and being prepared for offshore installation. And at the same time, Wind Europe is hosting its annual event, bringing together policymakers and companies. Floating offshore wind will be a major focus at this event. And as the US starts to develop offshore wind in deeper waters, we thought it would be a great time to take you over to Spain, and have a deeper knowledge dive into floating offshore wind. And on this trip, you will have the see and touch opportunity to see floating offshore wind technologies, port infrastructure, and supply chain. And as mentioned before, you will be able to see a floating offshore wind farm in person, which is a unique opportunity and will give you an advantage as the US expands its floating offshore wind in the West Coast and East Coast. And the planned activities for this trip are a combination of presentations and discussions on floating offshore wind technologies, environmental permitting, port infrastructure, and supply chain. You will have virtual and in-person briefings with Scottish policymakers. You will attend the Wind Europe conference with a US market lunch briefing and receptions, and a site visit of the Port of Bilbao with the DemoSouth floating platform prototype, and going to Portugal to see the Windfloat Atlantic floating offshore wind farm. The program costs and coverage. Our program costs is based on a delegation of 10 as of now, but we are open to 20 delegates. And as you can see, it's around $2,500. This is usually the price of our delegation trips. And the price includes trip organization, a hotel recommendation and block, Wind Europe registration ticket, facilitation of meeting, introductions, local transport, and meals during scheduled delegation sessions. Participants are responsible for their flight to and from Europe and the accommodation, as well as meals that are not part of the official program. And as we are still in COVID, we are currently monitoring and will follow all international and US health and safety guidelines. And should we need to cancel due to COVID, we'll no later than 14 days prior to the on-site trip. So now I will go into the detailed itinerary. The first day will be a virtual session. This is Thursday, March 24th, which is about 2 weeks before our in-person trip. And there you will have a roundtable with Scottish policymakers, such as the Scottish Government, Marine Scotland, Catapult, Scottish Enterprise. And there they will be talking about environmental permitting, supply chain, and R&D. And then you will arrive in Bilbao on Sunday, April 3rd, where we will have an evening reception where you can meet and greet your fellow delegates. On Monday, we will be going to the port of Bilbao, and there you can see the DemoSouth floating platform prototype, which you can see in the image below. And again, that is going to be of scale, and you can see a 2 megawatt turbine on it as well. And at the port, we will also have a supply chain briefing, knowledge exchange on the construction, manufacturing, and installation process with the developers, OEM, and local suppliers. On Tuesday, we will be in Bilbao for the Wind Europe conference. We will have a US market offshore wind lunch briefing together with the Virginia Beach Economic Development. And Wind Europe is going to have an opening reception. On Wednesday, again, be at the Wind Europe conference. There are organized B2B sessions with the Basque and European companies. That will be a great asset for you to meet local companies. And we will have a reception where you can meet and greet with the Scottish policymakers that you had the virtual session with the 2 weeks prior. And Wind Europe is also hosting a gala dinner on the Wednesday. On Thursday, we will be traveling to Porto, Portugal. That's about a 1-hour flight from Bilbao. And there we'll have a welcome reception and dinner together with Principal Power and EDPR, which are doing the Windflow Atlantic project. And on Friday, we will be traveling by bus to Viana do Castelo. It's about a 45-minute bus ride. And once there, we'll have presentations and discussions on Windflow Atlantic. And we will have the opportunity to take a boat out to see the floating offshore wind farm. So we'll probably be out at sea for about 1.5 hours. So if you do get seasickness, prepare. And then on Saturday, we will depart from Portugal.
Well, thank you so much, Bettina. I will say that this first delegation trip sounds very exciting. And I personally am going to be here in the US prepping for the network's largest annual event, but I will be thinking of you all on this trip and hope you have a productive week together. And I do just want to share that as a business development person myself, I have learned over the years, having done it many ways, that delegation travel is an excellent way to get so much more value out of your international trips for all of the reasons I mentioned earlier. So I hope you will consider joining us, and please remember that Global Gateway is open to members and non-members. So in a moment, we're going to move on to the Q&A portion of this presentation. But if you find that you have additional questions or would like to speak in further detail about any of the specific trips that are coming up, please reach out to Bettina and she can assist you with your planning. Now I'm going to hand it over to our silent in the background webinar host, who's going to take a look at the Q&A and help walk us through those questions.
What a thorough and informative webinar, Danielle and Bettina and Michael. Thank you so very much for giving us all a greater understanding about the delegation trips and the program itself and how American companies can benefit from that. So anyone, please put your questions into the Q&A. And I will say we got one that came in already, and you may have addressed this to some degree, but I just want to, this was a question that came in. I want to put a finer point on this question. Is this like a first come first serve opportunity, or is it more of the more the merrier kind of a thing?
The more the merrier, but we are going to cap it at 20 just because it is nice to have a smaller group when going on these trips so everyone can really get what they want out of the trip with meeting different companies and having questions and talking to developers and OEMs.
And so to further that, when you say 20, is that like, what if one company has 5 people? Does that mean there's 15 spots open, or does that mean you could have 20 companies?
We could have 20 companies, but we would like to have only 20 delegates.
Okay.
But if it's going to be 25, that's fine as well.
Okay, excellent. And here's another question. With travel restrictions, how can someone from a Norway office join the delegation trips considering it is US based?
Just meet us in Bilbao. You're welcome to join. If it is a US company and you're based in Norway, that's fine. But we'd love to have you join. It'll probably be easier for you to travel to Spain.
Fair enough. Another question that's come in. How is the boat tour to wind float being arranged? Are the project owners arranging this, or is there a private vessel being chartered?
So we are currently working with Principal Power, and they're organizing a boat for us. It's either going to be 2 boats or 1 boat, depending on how many delegates we have.
Okay, excellent. One other question has come in. What is the deadline to sign up for the trips?
Oh, that's a good question. Right now, February 15th. I think we would like to get the delegation group together as soon as possible, so we can also have a call before we go. But right now, February 15th.
Excellent, straightforward. Another question has come in. Is this a networking event? And if so, with whom?
Yeah, so we will be networking with Scottish policymakers, for example, the Scottish government and Marine Scotland at Wind Europe. And of course, Wind Europe itself is going to be a networking event. And then we will also be meeting people from Principal Power and EDPR when we're in Portugal. And at Wind Europe, they organize a lot of receptions as well that we can attend. I know of 2 of them that are organized by Wind Europe, but I know different companies and organizations also organize their own receptions. So these invitations should be coming in soon.
Great. Another question. Someone has another commitment on April 8th. Is the Portugal visit mandatory? And to sort of grow that question a little bit, is it like, does someone have to go to everything? Can someone like sort of pick and choose? How does that work?
We'd like you to go to everything, but of course, if you can't make it to Portugal, that is fine. We'd still love to have you on the first part of our trip.
Okay. You have answered all the questions that have come in. We'll give folks another minute to pop a question in the Q&A, and otherwise, seems like you've done your job and everyone understands exactly what's happening.
Yes, and if you have any more questions, please email me or call me, and I'm happy to set up a call with you to discuss further.
And just so everyone knows, I just put our website address in the chat. So you can also, you're welcome to go there and get more information. And you can see Bettina's information here on the slide. All right. I think we answered the Q&As, the Qs.
Thank you, Laura. All right, well, we just have one quick thing to go over before we let you go today. I just wanted to give a quick overview and remind you that the Business Network for Offshore Wind is a member-based nonprofit educational organization with our mission to develop the offshore wind renewable energy industry and its supply chain. We do this in a variety of ways, including the events, tools, and services shown here. What I did want to do today, let me say this, I promise I'm not going to go through every one of these products. I need more than a few minutes to do that, but I do want to draw your attention to 3 specifically that you could take advantage of right away. The first is Supply Chain Connect. This is a free industry registry that allows companies to publicly indicate their interest and ability to supply components and services for US offshore wind projects. If you haven't listed your company yet, I encourage you to take a look at that registry and do that today. And our team here is going to pop the link into the chat so you can head right over there after this webinar if you would like. The second is Foundation to Blade. This is a training tool specifically for businesses looking to enter the US offshore wind supply chain. So you've established your interest, you understand there's opportunities, and now you're ready to get started. The multi-day course will help you understand every aspect of the industry, from siting and permitting through operations and maintenance, but most importantly, it will help you understand where your company fits and how to successfully enter the market. Our next training is going to be held in person in Houston, February 7th through the 9th. We will also put that link here in the chat for you all. And the last is the International Offshore Wind Partnering Forum, fondly known to us as IPF. This is our largest annual event and will be held April 26th through the 28th in Atlantic City, New Jersey. This is the premier U.S. offshore wind event and will draw over 2,000 attendees from every facet of the supply chain, including developers, OEMs, and tier 1, 2, and 3 suppliers. If you are considering any offshore wind event this year, we think this is the one. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention membership. The network is a member-based organization providing services to companies just like yours working in the US offshore wind industry. Any member of the network team can speak about membership and is happy to answer any of your questions, so please feel free to reach out. All of this information can be found in depth on our website, which is www.offshorewindus.org. And that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning.